Now back here in Washington, D.C., with November's midterm elections getting close, the political temperature is hotting up. Later today, President Biden will visit the all-important battleground state of Pennsylvania to make a speech about his efforts to reduce mass gun violence through a series of executive orders that he's already signed.
So tomorrow, President Biden will be traveling about his Safer America plan and the simple, basic notion that when it comes to public safety in this nation, the answer isn't to defund the police, it's to fund the police. He will highlight how his plan would invest 100 more cops for effective, accountable community policing that builds public trust and strengthens public safety. When we talk about banning assault weapons, the NRA opposes it. And so we are going to hear from the president about the importance of making sure that we protect our communities. He will say that you can't propose defunding the FBI or defund the mob that stormed the Capitol and attacked and assaulted police officers on January 6th and be pro-police. And that's what you're going to hear from the president tomorrow.
Pennsylvania, of course, is the cradle of American democracy and one of the biggest political battlegrounds on the midterm elections map. The White House has announced that on Thursday, President Biden will return to the state. He's going to make a primetime address on what the administration calls the continued battle for the soul of the nation. The president's focus then is likely to be on the threat he says Republicans, and particularly former President Donald Trump and his supporters, pose to the nation's democracy. But today he'll take on Republicans who portray Democrats as unwilling to fight growing crime rates in some parts of the country. We're joined now live from New York City by Susan Teherani. Susan, let's talk about the crime issue first of all. How much pressure is President Biden on to respond to those critiques from Republicans? And how much of an opportunity does the White House think that he's got now to point to the executive orders that he signed on gun violence and say, look, we're really getting things done here?
This is President Biden's opportunity to focus on crime, to focus perhaps on issues that are most important to Americans. But unfortunately, President Biden always decides to pivot on his political opponents and put the attention on Donald Trump and his supporters, as we have been seeing in the past few days, even going as far as calling them semi-fascist, whatever that means. And so while he does have these opportunities, one after the other, he could be focusing on these legislations that you mentioned that he passed, although they are a lot more effective on paper than they are in the real world, as we are seeing here in New York and other states where crime hasn't really been lowered to an extent. But he could play on that. I mean, we've seen that the poll numbers are to his favor. But, you know, time and again, he seems to be focusing on the other side instead of focusing on the issues at hand. And that has always been Joe Biden's problem.
Talk about the speech that he's going to be making on Thursday. A battle, he says, is underway for the soul of the nation. That's pretty dramatic language for the White House to be using, perhaps suggesting that they're still very uncertain about the outcome of this battle for the soul of the nation.
Right, exactly. Again, you know, going back to what he said about 18 months ago about bringing the country together, but then he's again using this speech. You know, something very important. This is going to be a primetime address to the nation. That means the entire country will have to sit and listen to this. Of course, it's the Thursday before Labor Day weekend. And what's interesting is primetime addresses by the president is usually carried out to justify a policy decision or a military action. This is clearly something that's going to be a campaign speech. And when it's a campaign speech by the president, then, you know, a network that carries this out, then, you know, the party would have to pay for it if you think about it, you know, in real terms. So when he talks about democracy being under attack, which is something that the White House says he's going to be talking about. Well, it's not very democratic for one party to have that platform, a nationwide platform, to give a campaign speech and talk about your opponents bringing democracy under attack when the other side really doesn't have that platform, a nationwide platform, a primetime platform to really respond. So that's a really nuanced issue to take into consideration.
But Susan, it's not guaranteed, is it, that the broadcast networks in the country are necessarily going to carry this speech? I mean, the President and the White House are describing it as a primetime address, but they do have to secure the backing of the television networks to scrap their entertainment programming and actually carry it. So it's not yet guaranteed, is it, that that speech is going to be beamed into every single American living room from coast to coast?
That's absolutely correct. And one of the reasons is because of that issue, because it's not a policy address. It's not really that urgent. And again, as you mentioned, it's really coming the Thursday before Labor Day weekend. Are networks really going to put their...
Well, I think we've lost Susan Tehrani there live from New York, but I think you got the gist of what she was saying there. We are on the brink of a long holiday weekend here. President Biden requesting television network time on Thursday night to make this speech that he says is going to reference the continuing battle for the soul of the nation in the United States. We will track this story and see if the broadcast networks in the United States, ABC, CBS, NBC and Fox, decide to give him that airtime for that speech. And undoubtedly, we will bring you the highlights of that speech on Friday's edition of WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C.